Poppy Playtime Chapter 3 is set to come out in the next few months, and today I wanted to answer a bunch of questions about the game from the gameplay, new and returning monsters, and I even think I have a release date prediction that I don't think anybody is expecting. Starting first with one of the biggest questions, what monsters are going to be in Chapter 3? It's a massive question that I've already made multiple videos on alone, but to condense what we know, in Chapter 3, the developers have quoted multiple times to us that there were going to be a ton of fully new characters inside of Chapter 3, instead of just returning ones on their Discord. And they've even actually gotten into some minor legal trouble in the past with Chapter 3, with some of the characters' names actually being copyrighted by other companies, which is very interesting. And while they never outright said anything, we also know that the game's main antagonist is most likely going to be somebody completely new. Since also on Discord, the developers had told us that they were looking forward to adding the newest Chapter 3 character into their spin-off multiplayer title, Project Playtime, which eliminates basically all the characters in that game like Huggy Wuggy, Boxy Boo, Kissy Missy, Mommy Longlegs, Daddy Longlegs, along with other characters like Bron the Dinosaur, Boogie Bot, Candy Cat, and Cat Bee, since those are the toys we build in the game. Which to me is basically confirmation that the new character is going to be something entirely new to the franchise. And in fact, speaking of Project Playtime, in the basement area of the newest map, which hides a little Chapter 3 poster teaser here, around it is this massive mural showing another brand new monster as well. And while I don't think they're necessarily going to play a big part in the chapter, this is another character who is basically confirmed to be showing up. However, in terms of theories, there's also a ton of evidence to suggest that other characters, while not main characters, could also be returning like Huggy or Bron. But in my opinion, the three characters that I think are going to reappear in Chapter 3 are Huggy Wuggy, since he is the face of the franchise and they've hinted at his return a lot since Chapter 2. The prototype we see at the end of Chapter 2, since of course he seems to be the main villain of the entire game if you've watched any theories about Poppy Playtime. And also Daisy the Flower, because while there's minimal substantial evidence to suggest her existence in the game ever since her removal from Chapter 2, she is by far the most popular unreleased character in the entire game, showing up absolutely everywhere. Just look up Chapter 3 on Google and you'll see what I mean. And most recently, the developers for Chapter 2 released a full-blown behind-the-scenes video showing off different unreleased characters for the game station, where following this release, they said if any of the characters were to get popular and pick up traction, they would actually put them into future chapters like Chapter 4. So we know that the developers are willing to put characters in the game purely as long as they are popular enough, for better or for worse, which makes Daisy the Flower sound like a no-brainer. However, while we could talk about new monsters back and forth all day, there is a lot more stuff to talk about regarding the gameplay of Chapter 3. So while of course we don't have any sort of trailer or anything outside of the one teaser we got back in August, there are a few different things we've learned about the Chapter 3's game mechanics in the last year. Starting with the setting of Chapter 3, we already know from the ending of Chapter 2 that we are headed to a location called the Playcare, which in the Chapter 3 teaser trailer we hear is a daycare for the lost orphans in the factory seen on different posters throughout. And while not really much is known about the Playcare area gameplay wise, back during the development of Chapter 2, we were shown a video of many different scrapped versions of the game station we play in the second chapter, and following this recently released showcase, the developers would actually tell us that some of the elements seen in these videos were supposedly being taken and used for the Playcare itself. I don't know if that means stuff like the map design or some of the art used, however, either way it sounds insane. And speaking of insane, there's also supposed to be a ton of new puzzles and horror being added into the game as well. For example, the developers have teased a lot of new tech coming into the game, telling us there's going to be multiple new puzzles and mechanics inside of it. And in fact, they even said in an interview podcast that there was going to be multiple new hands in the chapter, similar to the green hand we swapped that gives us electric powers. So presumably there will be new hands in the game that give us different abilities, such as a hand that'll maybe give you extra range or allow you to stun the monsters or something cool in that vein. The horror is also supposed to get an upgrade, with the developers saying that the game will be much scarier than Chapter 1 and 2, even saying that they were risking the game getting a mature 17+ rating. And they also said that they were planning on removing a lot of the dialogue sequences like what we saw with Mommy Longlegs in Chapter 2, and we're rather going to be opting to build more tension in Chapter 3 like what we saw with Huggy Wuggy in the first game. In terms of predictions for gameplay, it's really hard to predict what new puzzles and stuff will be coming into the chapter. However, some theories suggest that going back to the teaser trailer, we see this gas mask here that is surrounded by some sort of red gas or fumes. So perhaps there will be another new game mechanic where periodically in the Playcare we will need to use this gas mask to hide from the smoke at certain points, but I'm not exactly sure. However, the biggest question that you're all probably wondering now is, when will Chapter 3 finally release? And well, to find the answer, first we have to ask the question, how will Chapter 3 release? As if we look at Chapter 1 and Chapter 2, the games usually run on a release schedule of first a teaser trailer, then a gameplay trailer a couple months later, followed by a VHS VHS tape teaser a couple days before release when it finally comes out. Simple enough. But Chapter 3 works a lot differently, because first they dropped a teaser trailer and then dropped basically nothing for the rest of the year until 2023, where they released 3 VHS tape teasers and still no trailer. So what's going on here? Well, of course, before Chapter 3 release, they started creating the game Project Playtime, which most likely took up a lot of time and resources, especially since they are still a small team. And so they have been releasing these mini Chapter 3 teasers to most likely keep building hype for the game while they still work on the incredibly long development process. However, recently in a Discord conversation, somebody had asked the developers about the trailers for Poppy Playtime, to which the developers would respond saying, "One thing I can say about Chapter 3's release date is it definitely won't come out of nowhere. There will be a gameplay trailer first, so you can at least wait until that comes out." Or in other words, before Chapter 3 can release, there still needs to be another full-blown gameplay trailer coming out, which will presumably be right before the game itself ends up coming out, which they also restated in other messages. But then this brings up the question, when is the trailer in question releasing? Well, they haven't told us too much, but they have mentioned in other messages that they are working on both adding and removing things in the trailer, even confirming to us that the trailer is both going to contain gameplay and some new animations, I assume similar to what we saw in the Chapter 2 gameplay trailer. But while I'm only theorizing here, I think that we are actually super close to the game's release. See, as we just discussed, in order to buy time leading up into Chapter 3's release, the developers would drop 3 different VHS tapes for this chapter in question. One on January 22nd, another about a month later on March 3rd, and one more a month and a half later on April 22nd. However, since then, they've dropped no more VHS tapes here in June, and it seems like they are done with that promotion itself. However, something you may have missed is with the release of both Chapter 2 and Project Playtime, the creators had made mini ARGs to follow the release pattern. Chapter 2 had the Poppy Playtime security website that randomly would update, and Project Playtime had the Rowan Stoll tapes. And what's most interesting about this is following Project Playtime's newest update a couple weeks ago, there has been a ton of different secrets hiding around suggesting that another new ARG might be happening very soon, with a bunch of secrets and teasers being found, along with a sticky note here that hints at the date of June 27th here in a few days. Not to mention, the developers have been actively replying under images discussing stuff like the security camera website, which has seemingly came back online very randomly recently, although it's still just a bunch of complete static. So it seems like a new ARG is about to start literally in the next week or so from this video's release. But what could this new ARG be for, you may ask? Well, let's look at what we have. There have been no Chapter 3 teasers in nearly 2 months at this point. A new Project Playtime update just came out with tons of Chapter 3 hidden references. The developers have been responding to people theorizing a new ARG, and they've already been working on Chapter 3 for over a year at this point. So I don't know about you guys, but to me, it seems pretty clear. Poppy Playtime Chapter 3 is coming very soon. Probably not this month or maybe even next, but I'm pretty confident in saying that with this whole ARG thing that's been going on and whatnot, I am almost 100% certain a new ARG is about to start, and it's probably going to be teasing none other than Chapter 3 coming out in possibly late July or sometime in August. I mean, there is way too much hype around the chapter for them to just completely ignore it. There are so many secrets pointing to it finally releasing, and a new trailer at this point should be releasing shortly. So to me, it sounds like a no-brainer that it's going to come out soon, unless I'm just completely off the mark, but let me know your theories down below. However, while it seems like Chapter 3 is going to be coming soon, the last question you're probably wondering about it is, what is the story going to be about? And you're in luck, because I made a whole video answering a ton of different theories right here. Make sure to check that out, subscribe, and peace.